the podcast starts.
Hello, faithful listener. Welcome to And Now the Podcast Starts. This is the show where we talk about horror, sometimes we talk about other things, and sometimes we swear. This week I have two marvellous co-hosts. The first is...
Stella in Manchester.
Hello, Stella.
Hello.
And the second co-host is...
Kirsty in Shropshire.
Welcome back, Kirsty!
Hey, thank you. It's lovely to be back.
It's lovely to see you again and to hear you. I'm just lording it over the listeners there because I have the privilege that they don't of seeing you both. And I am TD Velasquez in Greater Manchester, but you, dear listener, just like my co-hosts, can call me Dan. So, we're back. It's the week between the live Grimfest and the virtual Grimfest. And we've actually had two episodes this week. A couple of days ago, we had a mini Grimfest virtual festival preview episode where I interviewed the director, Aaron Batuska, whose movie For Roger is playing online via Grimfest over this weekend, as this episode is planned to go out on Friday the 15th. And if you're listening to it then, the film will be available to see online until the end of Sunday. So I recommend you go watch it, and I also direct you back to our podcast feed to the interview as well. But also this Friday is sort of Halloween, because it's not Halloween, but it is the day that the new Halloween film comes out, Halloween Kills, and the most appropriate thing I could think of for us to do on that day was to release a review 3 years late. So that's what today's episode is going to be. It's going to be myself and Howard and Ian and Spider Dan talking about Halloween 2018, which we'd only just seen when we recorded it. But hopefully it's an interesting discussion anyway. So that's what's coming up, but I have such pleasure in being joined here by Stella and by Kirsty. So we're gradually reuniting all the hosts of the podcast week by week. And it's wonderful to see and hear you both again, especially Kirsty. It's been a particularly long time. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. I'm very, very tired, but I'm okay. So just to explain my absence, I've moved house. And that ended up being much more legally protracted than any of us had planned on or thought could be possible when we started this process.
Yikes.
Sure.
So, yeah, we were meant to move kind of middle of July, finally moved middle of September. And I'm sure lots of people who know about these things will go, oh, that's completely normal. But it felt like forever. So, so it's just taken me a bit of time to get my head back on right. And
is the house that you've moved into the house that you had intended to move into back in July?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it's not been a case of the house wasn't available. It was,
no. It was just, kind of protracted. I'm not going to go into specifics because I don't want to find myself subject to any litigation.
No, fair enough. But
yes, it is all sorted now. And so that's good. So if I apologise, at the moment I'm sat in my dining room, which is probably the most echoey room in the house, because we don't have the office yet, because it's just for boxes. So, hopefully as time goes on, it'll be a better space for recording. But just not there yet.
Well, it's a very attractive Zoom background.
Yeah, it's nice.
Thanks.
I can see books. I can see some nice. Is that a cat on that shelf?
It is a cat.
Yeah. I like that.
Right. Nice, lovely.
Oh, yes. But you've moved. Oh, good stuff. It's horrible, isn't it?
Oh,
remember, we thought that we might try and buy a house and move while I was pregnant, but that was a bad plan. So we stopped and just carried on renting for a couple more years. It was just like, nah. Let's not do this now. Let's do this another time. Yeah, it's grim.
Yeah, stressful. Yeah. Anyway, I'm here to exercise the demons of the stress of it all. But yes.
Oh no, bless you. And it's a It's a great way to do it, and it's our privilege. And here we are together. We can just talk about horror and nice things. Horror and nice things. Nice things. That's our horror.
That's a tagline, surely, for the podcast. Horror and nice things.
And nice things.
That'll go on page 1 of the website.
Yeah.
I think I might put that there. It does kind of sum us up. So, so in the world of horror, and obviously we've had a bit of live news from Kirsty. If there's any other live news any of us want to talk about, that's cool too. But in the world of horror, have we got anything that we particularly want to talk about at the moment?
Yeah.
Go on, Stella.
The new Scream 5 trailer landed this week.
Yes. Any listeners who have heard the bonus episode we did earlier this week, where I was talking to Aaron Bartoska, will probably remember the moment where I talked about that, and he said, "Oh yes, the new trailer is dropping today," and I went, "What?" I honestly didn't even know it had been made yet, but yes, I've seen it.
Yeah.
And although it's not called Scream 5, is it? It's just called Scream.
It's called Scream.
Which, I should have expected that. But
some genius, and I use the word very, very loosely, pointed out that the angle of the mouth on the mask and the angle of the knife makes a V shape. So maybe that's where the 5 is. But I think it's a bit of a stretch.
When the logo came up at the end of the trailer, which is basically the word Scream with the mask behind it, I kind of squinted at it thinking, can that be seen as 5?
Yeah.
Maybe it could be V. Yeah, I sort of see that. I'll never get any other opportunity to say this except on a horror podcast with my friends. For some reason, I've always felt like the numeral 5 is like the most horrific number.
Because it's a bit, because it's sharp.
It's like scythe-like. And I can see it on a poster for a horror movie. Okay. So all horror franchises should make it to number 5 just so they can have that good poster.
Yeah.
Well,
my thought then went to what is it horrific because are we like in Freudian territory? It's sort of yonic the vagina dentata. Oh, the horror.
No, I don't think the V is horrific. Definitely, it has to be the numeral 5.
Okay. Okay, right. So not the Roman numeral 5. That's just what I was thinking about.
Right. No,
but the actual,
the number 5.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was it? And I was always annoyed that there wasn't in the original run of the Batman films. They never got to the 5th one. Because the 5th film was where it was rebooted with Christian Bale, but I wanted the Batman film where the poster was like a number 5, but with bat symbol in the round bit. You know,
that's a specific thing.
That's very specific. If anyone can, if anyone can Photoshop that to make it happen, and then send it in.
Please do somebody, because that will just solve decades of neurosis. So. But I've been thinking quite a lot about the tendency that we have now of sequels which are called the same thing as the original film. And I might do an essay or something about this. There's a really weird patient zero for this phenomenon, which is, can either of you guess what it is?
I mean, knowing your, kind of obscure knowledge base, Dan, I have no idea.
Well, I'll accept that. Fair enough. Well, anyway, I think the patient zero, and if anyone knows an earlier example, please tell me. But I think it's the Dad's Army film from 2015, the one with Toby Jones, because that movie is not a remake of Dad's Army; it's a sequel, and there was already a film called Dad's Army. So they didn't feel, and now we've had Halloween just this year, we've had Candyman just a few weeks ago, Candyman, and now Scream, which I didn't know until yesterday was not called Scream 5. So.
Well, somebody said, why didn't they have the scary number 5 instead of the S?
Yeah. Like 7,
right?
But
like 7,
yeah.
But then it would have been a problem when we write about it, because I'm never sure if I should write films or titles in their stylized way, like Seven,
No,
or
Yeah.
or to just write
7N.
to just
I
write
think
Seven.
I think 7 is pretty accepted as SV7.
Yeah.
EN, I think.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I get that totally.
Yeah.
But I also, it does irk me when you kind of like when reading about films that you can only know which one you're actually talking about because you have to follow it with the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
And it just kind of it's about the ease of information, isn't it? I think 15 years ago, if movies did that, you'd have to look up in a book what the previous film was or whatever.
Yeah,
but now you can just Google it on your phone, so it doesn't.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think when you put when you have a film that has the same title, one assumes that it's a remake. And
Yeah.
So to have a second film that's part of the same franchise that has the same title, it just seems just a bit deliberately obtuse, really.
Well, it does make you wonder, are they never going to change the title again? Will Scream 6 also just be called Scream? And,
We'll see.
and I mean, the Halloween franchise would indicate that they're not quite ready to go that far yet. The new film's called Halloween Kills, but you could just have every film be called Halloween, and you just meant to know, well, you know what year it is, don't you? It's the new one.
Not listening to your reviews because they're not coming out in the right year.
Well, that's true. That's true.
But is it not also assuming a sort of level of sort of lack? Well, I suppose both familiarity with the franchise in one way, as in the audience will absolutely know which one you're talking about or which one this is, or on the flip side of that, is it assuming that nobody cares anymore about any of the heritage or the kind of cultural legacy of the stuff that came before because it's just Scream.
It's just Scream.
I
don't know. Well, looking at the trailer, there's a few points where it's clear that there needs to be some background knowledge.
Yeah.
Because some of the lines that like Sydney and Gail say, it's like, well, if you're coming to Scream 5 just at Scream 5, you're going to be like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
So it's not they've not done it as a clean slate, but then looks like there's a huge other ensemble cast as well of completely new people. I don't know, but I think the trailer looks good, but I don't think I'm particularly impartial when it comes to anything Scream related. I just get excited.
I think it's time we did some Scream focus episodes, Stella, and yeah, that would be wonderful. No, I thought the trailers looked good. I thought there was a sense that you were expected to know who the returning characters were. That it wasn't presenting them as if they're new characters. So, and I have to say, I struggled to recognise Courtney Cox first time I saw in the trailer. But so I think it's very much a sequel, and I wonder if it's part of the relationship, the slightly more complex relationship between the filmmakers, the film studio, and the audience. The audience are kind of expected to do a certain amount of the work. And just understand that. It's always struck me as kind of similar in a way to, Buffy and like the X-Files as well. They never have the titles of episodes on the screen, ever.
Yeah.
But the fans would just know which episode was which.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which does beg the question about how the fans are going to talk about it, though, in, kind of a little bit further down the line when you're talking about the Scream. Have you seen Scream?
Yeah.
Oh, which one?
Yeah.
Because with, kind of, with numbers, that's great. It's easy. Or when they have, kind of additional, like Halloween Kills. That's easy.
Yeah.
But, it just, it seems a little bit like kind of distributors and kind of, studios making audiences' lives just a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I think they're trying increasing gambits to make each title more commercially appealing to the widest possible audience. And a couple of years ago, well, they're still doing it, they would release a sequel which had the same title as the previous film, but with the definitive article added, like, the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know...
Which is also
can,
confusing.
Yes. Yes, it is. And it's the kind of thing you can only do that once. You know, the next film's not going to be called The Suicide Squad.
No. But also, I think by doing that with that particular film, it was very much like, this is a do-over.
Yeah, because let's not talk about that one.
Well, I haven't seen either film, so I can't comment. But
And I will.
Okay.
Go on.
Well, I'll just say that. Again, it's confusing though, isn't it? Because that movie seems to be kind of a do-over, but at the same time, it's got bits in it like Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, where they've gone, people like this bit, so we'll keep this bit.
Yeah. I think you can just largely ignore the first film, to be honest.
I turned it off. I couldn't watch it.
Right.
Good call.
About halfway, and it was getting quite late at night. So late at night, it's probably about 10:30, and but I was just like, me and Owen just looked at each other like. Should we go to bed? Like, because it was that I don't really, because I think it was a Sunday night as well. It was that I don't want to stay up to watch this. This isn't worth me being tired in the morning. So I'm gonna go to bed, bin it off.
Right.
Yeah. Not finished it.
Just for clarity, that was Suicide Squad, the David Ayer film, right?
Yeah.
Is the Suicide Squad better? Have either of you seen that?
I've not seen it.
Yes.
Okay.
I have, and I can attest that despite its many failings, it is immeasurably better.
Right. Okay.
Maybe I'll try that one then, and I'll put it on earlier.
Maybe the only way I'll ever watch Suicide Squad is if I'm going to watch the Suicide Squad, and I just will watch a few bits of the earlier film just to compare. But that's probably it. I did see Birds of Prey, though, and I rather enjoyed that. That was actually the last film I saw at the cinema prior to the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And somehow I didn't want the first film I saw after the pandemic to also be a Harley Quinn film, so that's why I chose to not see the Suicide Squad. I saw Black Widow instead. Little did I realise it would appear on Disney Plus for free, like, only 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
Never mind. You got me there, Disney. You got me. And with Free Guy, you did that as well.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we're definitely veering off.
Yes, we're drifting off topic. We've well drifted it. It's just nice to speak. Yeah. So, Kirsty, I think you had some news you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, no, so I don't know, obviously, how long ago we've talked about Monsieur Rob Savage on the podcast. But his second feature, the first one he's done with Blumhouse, got its international premiere at TIFF a couple of months ago, and it's just like, well, we'll have had its UK premiere at London Film Festival. We'll have had it on, I mean, talking about it, Thursday this week. So at the time you're listening to this, it would have already happened, but from my perspective, it's tomorrow. So that's very exciting, and it's, kind of getting, it seems to be a sort of slightly Marmite-y movie, reviews. But again, it's apparently its runtime is quite short, and it's kind of shocking apparently in a range of ways. I'm sadly not going to London, but I will see it as soon as I can. Yeah, as soon as I'm able to do it, I will. So
I'm going to screen host in my lecture on doing a lecture on found footage and haunted machines in week 7, and I'm going to screen host because it's an hour, so I can fit it into the last hour of a 3-hour lecture.
That's great. Yeah. But also, did you know that now, according to science, it is the most scary film?
Is it?
Oh, right.
Yeah, because there was some study, I forget.
Summit.
It was before it was Insidious or The Conjuring or something. Anyway, something that was like, kind of meant to be like the scariest film of it, according to like physiological research. But now apparently it's host.
Oh, right.
Right.
So,
I'll tell them that, and the students will go,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Just put it on.
Okay.
Can we get snacks first? Yes.
I'd love to know the criteria for that.
No, I will share an article with you. But
send us the article. I'll have a look.
Very excited.
Isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Whee.
No, brilliant.
Yes.
I want to see more of his wonderful stuff. I love his... This may be a rumour rather than true, but I heard that he'd be turning his short film called Salt into a feature.
Yeah, I think that's happening.
That's fantastic.
It's one of the ones that he's got kind of on the boil.
Yeah, it's an amazing short film.
Yeah, it is.
And I want to see more like that, definitely. Yes. And, couldn't be more different from something like Host. Obviously, most films are very different from Host, but it's just indicative that he's got range and he's got a lot to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob Savage, let me say this, friend of the podcast.
Hey! Friend of the show, Rob Savage.
Talking about friend of the podcast, Danny Robbins.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Of Battersea Podcast. Has got another podcast coming out called Uncanny.
Okay.
The trailer was released, I think, yesterday. So it's a slightly more broad focus. Some ghosty stuff, but also some kind of UFO-y stuff.
Cool.
So that's coming to the BBC Sounds app. So I'm definitely going to be listening to that once I've finished Sandman Act 2.
All right.
So it might take me a while, but I definitely will listen. Danny, if you're listening, I will definitely listen.
Of course he is. Hi, Danny.
Hi, Danny.
Yes, hello, sir. And your play sounds amazing as well.
Yeah.
That's the main thing I've been taking note of is his play in London, which hopefully will come up north at some point. Yeah. But, with theatre, this kind of thing often doesn't travel, such as with ghost stories, you know. But that's one of the wonderful things about theatre as well, is that it sometimes, it is sometimes the product of very specific circumstances, which makes it even more special if you do get to see it. As with you, Kirsty, I know that when you saw Ghost Stories, that was a great experience for you. So fantastic. Okay, well, I think we've had a wonderful catch up, and I think we should probably let the listeners hear the main feature of this episode. Listeners, this review is obviously 3 years old. Because we recorded it when the movie was new, we thought maybe the people hearing this have not seen the film, so we avoid spoilers for, say, the first half hour of it. But then we go into detail on it. For any fans of the Halloween franchise listening, I think the only thing I want to say prior to the review is that if you're hoping to listen to it, obviously this episode is meant to come out on the day that the new film comes out. If you think maybe you're listening to this review to boost your enthusiasm prior to seeing the new film, maybe won't do that.
You're really selling it, Dan.
Well, but I want to be open. Otherwise, I'd have to apologise at the end. So, if you want to be filled with, Halloween 2018 enthusiasm and love, maybe stop this podcast now and come back at another time. On the other hand, if you want interesting critical appraisal of the movie, because we do and I say this because it surprised me, because I like the film, but we do kind of pull it apart, to be honest. I guess that happens.
Was it Ian?
Especially,
did he not like it?
Ian's there, and it's actually Ian's first ever recorded appearance on this podcast, because obviously it was a couple of years before we got going properly, but he was there for this one. So
this podcast is so non-linear, it's not true. I don't even know what day it is anymore, to be honest.
Well, what matters anymore, Kirsty?
You just embrace it.
Yes, absolutely.
Just let it wash over you.
So hopefully in a few weeks we'll do a follow-up review where we've actually seen Halloween Kills and can talk about that, but that depends on some of us actually seeing the film, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get to see it soon, so we'll keep you posted on that. But Stella, I'd like to come back to you at the end of this review to ask you for your thoughts about the movie, just to give you a chance to chime in. But for now, It's all blokes in a pub in Manchester 3 years ago. Over to my ancient self and Howard and Ian and Spider Dan to talk about Halloween 2018. And to get you in the mood, here's a bit of audio from the trailer of the movie.
Testing 1, 2, 3. We're on.
We're here to investigate a patient that killed 3 innocent teenagers on a Halloween in 1978. He was shot by his own psychiatrist and taken into custody that night, and has spent the last 40 years in captivity. Hello, Michael. I have something you might like to see.
Everyone in my family turns into a nutcase this time of year. Yeah, I mean, your grandmother is Laurie Strode. She was almost murdered.
Wasn't it her brother who murdered all those babysitters?
No, it was not her brother. That's something that people made up.
Do you know that I pray every night that he would escape?
What the hell did you do that for?
So I can kill him.
Dad, look out!
The bus crashed.
Mom, what bus crash?
Michael escaped.
Excuse me, somebody's in here.
Hello?
He's waited for this night. He's waited for me. I've waited for him. Get out! Go alone! Get inside! You don't believe in the boogeyman? He's here! Michael! You should.
Can you close the closet door?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 11th and final episode in the Halloween franchise retrospective series from And Now the Podcast Starts. I am your co-host, Dan, and my usual co-host is here with me.
Hello, I'm Howie.
And once again, as has happened often in this series, we are delighted to be joined by Dan B.
Hello.
Welcome back, Dan B. And we have another special guest for this episode who's not been on the podcast before, and he is coming in with a unique perspective. It is the freelance... Sorry.
My ignorance.
Excellent, that's what we want. It's the freelance writer and critic, Ian Winterton.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Ian. Welcome
Howdy.
to the show.
Hey, good to be here.
It's good to have you here. I don't know why people are laughing.
Wasn't ironic. Genuine,
sounds like a
genuine
Radio 4
comment.
chat show.
Well, I try.
Well, you know what?
How many layers does this film work on?
So, Ian, I asked you on this podcast because you responded to my shout out on Facebook when we were setting up this series of Halloween podcasts, and your response was that you've never seen any of them.
No, and it's weird because I have seen a lot of films. I've been a film critic most of my adult life.
And somehow you've avoided these 10 movies.
I haven't avoided them deliberately, and I think I have watched... It's weird, when I think of Halloween, I think of Silver Shamrock, and vaguely seeing... Which is probably like the worst example of the franchise.
No.
The other things I remember seeing as a kid on catching snatches of them at night. I don't know. I grew up watching a lot of telly, but I didn't watch a lot of films because my parents were tight when it came to VHS.
Oh, right.
Some of my friends are like they had before VHS even came along. They seem to have gone through several VCRs. and we didn't get one until 1988, by which time I was 16.
The year of my birth.
Oh well, I was 16.
The two things are connected.
I was 16 and Doctor Who was just about to end, and I managed to record like the last flurry of Doctor Who.
Oh, gee.
And never watch them again because they were awful.
Yeah.
And, which is why they came.
Yeah.
Anyway, off topic.
That's what you're.
But also it means that even though I was drawn to the horror genre and I liked the idea of it, and I read a lot of Stephen King and a lot of Ramsey Campbell especially, and things like that, I never did the whole going to the video store and renting 18s.
Okay.
And which seems to be a main thing. And growing up back then, there weren't DVDs, there weren't YouTube, there wasn't all the things you can do now to catch up. You know,
Sure.
Everyone now just, you know, I lecture in film studies. Every student has no excuse to not have seen stuff. They still bloody haven't, but they have no excuse because they can literally go and find anything. Even if they've got no money, they can go nick it.
Yeah.
So they've got no excuse, and so I was part of that last generation that didn't quite
have that access.
Yeah, we didn't have that access, which, you know, like Scorsese had to go and sit in a movie theatre. Woody Allen had to go and sit in a movie theatre to be obsessive about movies, whereas VHS meant you could just go every day and watch something. But when it comes to horror, I do love horror, but as I was saying before we started recording, I'm drawn. The horror that really scares me is I love The Exorcist because it scares me. I love Rosemary's Baby because it scares me. I love Night of the Demon because it scares me, even though it's a PG. Weirdly.
Oh, it's a great movie.
But it's a great movie. I just rewatched it, which is why it's on my mind. And so I was never really in a hurry to go and watch a slasher movie either. And I never liked Freddy Krueger. I never liked the latex 80s stuff.
Right.
So that's a whole area. So I guess that's just why I didn't zoom out to find Halloween. And then I finally went and watched it.
Well, before we go on to that, I think you've already been mentioned on this podcast.
Right.
Funnily enough, in relation to Halloween 3.
Oh, I see.
You just mentioned because I don't know if you're aware because you haven't seen the film, but the plot kind of turns on evil Halloween masks that are activated by TV signals.
Is that the one with Silver Shamrock?
Yes.
Yes.
So we were talking about this with Gareth Kavanagh, and he was talking about the fact that if this happened for real, you would be one of the only kids who'd be saved because your family insisted on only watching the BBC. So you wouldn't get any evil.
There were no commercials.
Yeah.
No. We've talked. Gareth always finds it funny because he was very ITV and I was very BBC. We worked for the BBC.
We were both.
And we generally had a bit of a ban, unofficial, and then I think about it, and we did start watching quite a lot of ITV. But it was only when I got like a TV in my room when I was about 16. Again, 1988. Everything went out the window, and then I started watching things on my little black and white TV,
right?
24-hour TV, and that's where I caught Alien accidentally from the beginning.
Oh, right.
I just went, it's a spaceship. And literally, black and white TV, that was my first introduction to Alien. Then was so scared, because I was a wimpy 16-year-old kid. but literally going, oh my God, what is this?
I bet it looks great in black and white.
It seemed like it was made for black and white. It was perfect. That's how I still imagine it, because it was an old black and white TV. It was about as big as your laptop with like a silver aerial on the top. And every so often it went.
Well, I
was just perfect for watching Alien. When you're 16 and you're completely with horror films, it scared the Jesus out of me.
Even all the computer screens and everything do that as well. I
was watching it on bad tech.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, when you think you were wimpy, I had a colour TV, but used to turn the colour off when I was watching horror films. I watched David Cronenberg's The Fly in very, very low contrast, low brightness. Yeah, I couldn't deal with gore. There was a time when...
How ironic.
I was going to say, you've watched the goriest...
there's a picture in front of me in this magazine of one of the goriest scenes from the film.
From the new movie.
From the new movie, where his jaws smashed across the desk.
Well, so indeed, and therefore, let's get to the new movie. So I thought, seeing as you haven't seen any of them, it would be a good idea for you to come and talk about the new film. But I did ask that you finally watched the original 1978 Halloween, because the new film is ignoring all the other sequels. So it's okay that you haven't seen them.
I found it so exciting that they've done that with canon, because it just made me go. Well, immediately sidetrack. It just made me think. Aliens, Ripley.
Oh yeah.
A movie called Ripley. I don't want to write.
But
anyway, we won't get sidetracked.
We'll talk about that. I love the sound of it, and
just,
maybe it will happen. Maybe the success of this movie will make things like that happen.
But with this, I was thinking it was really strange watching Halloween and then watching a film which almost even though it said, you didn't need. Almost was designed so you didn't need to watch the original. It was actually probably better if you hadn't watched the original, because it was almost like it's doing some shot-for-shot remake bits.
Yeah.
And I'd literally watched it the night before, and then I was watching it again. And it also, my main problem with it was she'd gone full Sarah Connor.
Yeah.
She'd gone full Sarah Connor, and I know obviously I've never been chased. I've never been the last girl and been chased and had friends killed in front of me. But in terms of a movie, okay, he's evil, but most of the mythology about him is the fact that it's been 40 years and we've had loads of shit films.
Yeah.
I assume they're shit because they sound awful.
No.
and they've made his mythology supernatural and druids and then something to do with taking over the TV and all these sort of things, and all this stuff that they said they've got rid of is kind of then somehow imbued in it's Michael Myers, everyone knows who Michael Myers is, and he's such a bad killer that she doesn't go, they've arrested him and he's in a secure hospital, I can probably get on with my life now. I'm slightly traumatised, but I go on with my life. But she goes full Sarah Connor and gets obsessed. Are we allowed to do spoilers at this point?
Not this point.
No.
Okay,
so she goes full Sarah Connors, ruins. So in a way, it's really depressing because she's the whole thing about it is she's square. Yeah. In the first movie, she's square and she goes on about academia all the time. And there's, apart from one line, there's no mention of that in the new movie.
Yeah, that's true.
And the fact that she's basically just going, oh my god, I've been attacked. What should I do as a powerful feminist message? I should completely be scared and live my life in fear.
Yeah.
Or is the way to win, get on with your damn life. And I thought that would have been nice if maybe in an early draft there was, because of that little ghost of a line. But you've got academic granddaughter. And maybe the thing is she should have gone, oh my god, I've wasted 40 years of my life being scared, and I should have, the biggest thing to do would have been to get on with my life, don't let the terrorists win kind of thing. But her character has been so traumatised that she's turned into Sarah Connor.
Yeah, essentially.
Basically, it's a weird, mad survivalist.
Okay, so let's frame this discussion a little bit. Just before we go into detail on discussing the new film, Ian.
I was going to say, yeah.
And you'd never seen the 78 film before.
No.
So how did you find it?
It was. I found it. I could see what the fuss was about, to be honest. And obviously, I knew. It's weird because I've loved John Carpenter's The Thing, and I've loved Escape from New York,
Assault on Precinct 13,
and Assault on Precinct 13 to a lesser degree. But I guess because I'm sci-fi and. Right. Like I was saying, Alien is my way into all scary movies, I think, and the devil. So anything with the devil in it, I seem to seems to have worked for my religious upbringing, which hasn't taken. But it's really good to have watched it because it was kind of as I expected. This was before we knew what a spoiler was, but it was so well known that the twist spoiler free, the twist halfway through Psycho was so well known that my dad didn't feel he had to hide it from me. But I will never ever know. I will never ever know what it felt like to watch.
Anybody
Psycho.
here, when they first watched Psycho, did they not know the twist?
I knew the twist.
My children, when they're now 11 and 9, and at some point I'm going to show them.
That's your long-term plan. I'm going to raise people who will be surprised by the twist
and horrified.
That's the main reason I had children.
I don't think I knew the twist, but I think at the age I was when I saw it, I could work it out.
Right.
The way it was filmed.
Yeah. It's so shocking.
Yeah, I just think I could sort of work it. Perhaps I did know it. Perhaps I didn't.
Like, if it had been called Psycho, maybe it wouldn't have been. You wouldn't have been so keyed into. She's not.
I still found it terrifying. I still found it terrifying.
Yeah. No, I still loved it.
That's a marvellous film.
I think at the time the word was so unfamiliar that they could get away with calling it Psycho.
Yeah, of
People
course,
wouldn't
yeah.
really know what that was meant. I think it's. We'll talk about Psycho 2 in a bit because I think the new Halloween film is useful to compare it to Psycho 2, and I do think it's. I think it's a really good film, but I think it's really bizarre moment in it when Dennis Franz calls Anthony Perkins' character, he calls Norman Bates a psycho. It's like, hey, psycho! It's like, that movie was never made. You know?
Yeah. Why are you using that word?
But sorry, Ian, to knock you off track.
But the back to the 78 version, I could see it as it was. What struck me as well was I could see the fuss about it, but also it was a very slight movie. It was the sort of thing that, like a lot of directors' first films, you can see as a calling card. It was like quite low budget.
Extremely.
It was precinct. It was small. It was there was didn't require any massive special effects. It was all about camera shots and suspense, and as Carpenter said himself, it was crap till he put the music on the top. So he saved the movie with the cheap soundtrack. So it's a weird movie because it's not even all that groundbreaking in a weird way. It's I don't know. Would you say it is because Psycho was 62.
We've discussed on
and
this
is
movie
78. And it's just let's have a scary movie.
But also there was Black Christmas, which we've talked about on this podcast before, a couple of years before that, and there was, as Kim Newman said, there were like 1 million episodes of the ATV series Thriller, which were usually about killers with subjective cameras stalking women.
Peeping Tom.
But I think it's an accident of style and skill that it just.
I think it is a very slight story, but really it's brilliantly presented.
Yeah.
And it is scary. It does what it sets out to do. It is scary. It's not shocking or anything like a lot of the later ones. It's unnerving. It's disquieting.
It does have that atmosphere to it.
It's very
it just have that. I think the best thing about Michael Myers is he's unstoppable. That the mask is it's just very simple, but the mask and him being unstoppable, but without him coming back to life 1,000 times at the end. He's not Jake. But then I guess in the later movies, because you get Friday the 13th. I've never seen Friday the 13th either. This is another gap.
That's all right.
You're not missing much.
You can leave that one unfilled.
Yeah. But I imagine the original of Friday the 13th is like he's on the same sort of par as the sequels to Halloween. As in it's very trashy and he dies 1 million times. There's lots of blood spurting everywhere. Even as a kid, I wasn't that bothered about those films because I don't find them scary. I want to be scared by a horror movie. And I was, to Halloween's credit, it was creepier than I expected it to be. Whereas I expected not to be scared. And it was weird in that. I mean, we'll talk about the misogyny later because I do think it was there. But also, it was a lot less. I guess I was expecting an 80s slasher shocker, which is kind of played for laughs, and it wasn't.
Yeah,
it was a bit grimmer than that, which was all to the good for my money.
Nice one.
It was kind of like this is what a man with a kitchen knife would be like with a Halloween mask on, rather than here's a man with a kitchen knife and here's a cascade of blood and he's just done something unrealistic. He mostly just follows people and stabs them. And pins them.
You don't see enough blood, he doesn't dominate the film the way he kind of. In all the sequels, he kind of stomps through them doing his thing, and he's so visible and so there. And he is just another serial killer, generic.
I was going to say another one it reminded me of was Leatherface, and obviously that was before, wasn't it? And then that film scared the shit out of me. Because that wasn't supernatural, and it was so down in the gutter that when I watched that when I was in maybe 16, 17. At the cinema. I watched it at Link Cinema in Northampton. Double bill with Bad Taste. All the things. Wow. So we watched a really harrowing film, and then we watched some Light Relief, which was really fun. So Michael Myers has got something of Leatherface about when Leatherface just won't stop. But he's real. He's not supernatural.
I think that's That's cool. All right, so let's move on to talk about the new film then, and we'll come back to you in a minute, Ian. But I think if we get everyone's impressions, I'm interested in 2 spoiler-free questions.
Okay.
One, did you think it worked in 2 ways? 1, as a film on its own. 2, as a sequel to the '78 Halloween. If it is ignoring all the other sequels and it's just a sequel to that movie, does it succeed at being that in the way that I think Psycho 2 succeeds at being that? What do you think?
Are you looking? Right, 2 questions. Do I think it works as a film on its own? Just about. Do I think it works as a sequel to the original Halloween? No.
Okay.
Because it doesn't have. I watched this film in Crewe, which is very nice. I went to college in Crewe, so I always get nostalgic. Even though it's looking a bit shabby these days, there's not many shops open. But I went to college there, sixth form college, and had a good time. So I went to see it there, and it was great actually because there were these 2 guys in the cinema. These 2 guys behind me who were sort of being a bit raucous. It's all through the trailers. So when it says "turn your phone off," they're going, "Yeah, turn your phone off. Come on, turn your phone off." And I think one of them broke wind at one point. So, sorry, everybody. But then, just as the film was about to start, all I could hear from behind me was. So I thought, my God, they're not going to snore all the way through this film, are they? So it was quite a strange sort of beginning to it, you know.
Did that take you out the film?
No, it did. Well, it did. I just thought you're not going to do it all the way through. But then they didn't.
Did you have your kitchen knife with you?
Sadly, no. So it started, and what was the question?
Do you think it worked?
Do I think it worked? So I was watching it
as a sequel and as a standalone film.
As a sequel, yeah, it started well. See, we can't do any spoilers. That's the thing. We can't say what I kind
Well,
of
we
liked.
can in a minute because we're going to have a section where we'll discuss with spoilers. But basically, I want the listener to know that they can listen to the first bit of the podcast in safety.
Did it work as a sequel to the first film? No, because I just did think it didn't have the atmosphere and it didn't have the style and it didn't have the tone that the first film had. As this film is a direct sequel to the first one, I thought, well, there's going to be some kind of tonal similarity. It's going to be the same kind of thing. John Carpenter's involved. So it is going to be about atmosphere. It is going to be about scaring people, not shocking people or grossing people out. And after the first 20-25 minutes, when the killing started, that's when it did, to me, just become another slasher film. I didn't think there was anything particularly distinctive about this. This is like 100 films you see on the Horror Channel. As a film in its own right, yeah, it kind of worked. It had good actors in it. Will Patton, the great unsung American character actor, Will Patton is in this film.
Playing Deputy Hawkins.
Yes, and very good. And there's some good actors in. So as a film on its own terms, yeah, because it's well acted and well made. But I just think it makes the same mistake as all the other sequels did, and Halloween didn't do, which is it's all about the killing. Once the killing starts, it's all about the killing. It's all about the violence. It's all about the blood and gore, and everything kind of gets sublimated to that.
Fair enough, Howard. What do you think, Dan?
Does it work as a sequel? I think yes. I think there's enough references and tips of the hat and returning actors and elements that I think it's very much a modernised take. It is more and it's a better excuse me. It's a better modernised take than the most recent Rob Zombie ones that we've been over.
Yeah, but
it's
that's all I'll say.
I think it's one of the best written and acted of the Halloween films since the original. I think they've got some terrific talent in there as well. Does it work on its own? I think it can work on its own. I think it's so steeped in that mythos and almost shot for shot in several kind of. They do the shots and there are references. There's even kind of little hints to the films they're ignoring, like various different. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there are kind of little snippets or things that could be interpreted.
There's quite a lot.
Yeah. So I think the script has a lot of reverence for the whole franchise, which I think's great for a Halloween fan. I think it's just enough its own thing, yet enough Halloween that it just about works for me. There's a lot of kind of creepier elements. Yes, like Howard said, there's a lot of violence as well, but I think that's kind of balanced out with some of the more stalkery hunting moments and kind of it kind of turns kind of the strength of it and the strength of the performance from Jamie Lee Curtis it does try and flip it on its head, and I think even the shots indicate that. When a lot of these shots from the original film that were shots of Michael are now shots of Jamie Lee Curtis, so she's experienced this, and she's become a stronger person for it, and she's planned this and prepared. It's all in the preparation, just like Batman. It's all in the preparation. But yeah, I enjoyed it wholeheartedly as a sequel and on its own terms.
Okay, nice one, Dan. That's very positive. Ian, so what do you think then, as a movie on its own right and as a sequel to the 78 film which you've only just seen?
As a movie in its own right, I think what Howard said is probably more what I'm feeling, which is if a lot of people are saying, oh, you don't need to have seen the original, you just watch this. And I think if you watch this and it was completely it was like, why am I watching yet another bunch of teens being chased around by a killer? He's quite effective because he's got a mask on. Jamie Lee Curtis, wasn't she in Fish Called Wonder? If you forget, if you're not aware of Jamie Lee Curtis got her. To me, I first found out about her in Fish Called Wonder, really. So to me, that's the movie that put on the map for me, which is just weird, isn't it? But as a movie in its own right, it wasn't terrible. I still thought it was very tonally weird because it went, as I've mentioned Sarah Connor before, it went from being a bit like the original, as in quite creepy and atmospheric, and then it had Silence of the Lambs dumped in the middle of it. Or not in the middle of it, but at the beginning of it, had a bit of Hannibal Lecter going on. And it had those two stupid people with the podcast.
By the way, podcasts don't be hate podcasts.
So annoying.
They've got a lot of flack for that. I don't know if anybody else caught that. Well, firstly,
they're basically serial, aren't they?
I've seen this movie twice, and the second time I realised, to my horror, that the male podcaster was dressed as me. Obviously, I'm not a particularly famous podcaster.
Are you being very paranoid?
But he's wearing this coat, and he's got like a ginger beard.
Do you have 3 grand lying around? Because you can interview me all you like.
But he's called Aaron Corey, and I think that's a reference to Aaron Mankey, who's the guy who presents the Lore podcast. If anyone's familiar with that,
right, no.
It's a big American podcast about folklore. And
I see.
And it's got it is quite good, but it's got this kind of slightly pretentious tone to it. He basically just retells other people's stories all the time, in his own way. And like the bit where the guy he's like perches on Judith Myers' grave and talks into his microphone about how she was killed and all that. I
just don't know there's not a camera on him.
Indeed. So, so how do we get talking about the podcasters? Anyway, Ian.
But yeah, because of the serial, this sort of Silence of the Lambs element to the prison visits and everything, but there was a sort of tone there which kind of worked, and the sort of grittiness and the naturalism of the original was kind of there, but then it kind of went. I think when the killing starts, it goes so over the top, and then we're not going into the spoilers bit, but I just thought by the time we got onto the sort of finale and a lot of the things that were going on as the movie went on, especially involving Dr. Loomis's replacement.
We'll get to that.
So a lot of my problems with it would require spoilers, but I just felt like the wheels came off. Quite a lot.
We'll go into spoilers. My spoiler-free thoughts about it. We'll go into spoilers later, but I'll just express my spoiler-free thoughts about it. I kind of agree with Ian and Howard. I think it just about worked as a film. If you haven't seen any of the others, it's just a slasher movie. It's okay. It gets really good towards the end. I think the last half hour is very, very good. And it has a really good lead performance. So that kind of distinguishes it, and it makes it worth seeing. And I think you do come away from it. I came away from it having been really annoyed and frustrated with earlier parts of the film, to the point where at moments I was like, are they doing this again? I'm sick of this. But by the end of it, I was feeling really good, and I came out of the movie in a good frame of mind. There is plenty of good elements in it. The performances, the music, John Carpenter's score.
It was great to hear that music in
terrific. Yes, it really was. I saw it in an iSense screening, and it was just like booming. The room was shaking with that stuff, and that was lovely. I did think it was. Yeah, I enjoyed. I think if you have seen the original, it kind of works not as a sequel to me, but like a companion piece. You know, you might appreciate the bits which are deliberate spins on scenes from the original. You might appreciate things like PJ Souls is in the movie. She plays the voice of the teacher in the teaching scene.
Oh, really?
And then the fact that Laurie's granddaughter's boyfriend Cameron is, I think, hinted at being the son of Lonnie, the kid from the annoying bully kid from the first Halloween film. So just think, and they're talking about how much of an idiot his dad was quite a lot, and I thought it was quite nice. And and also that scene where they talk about that is the restaurant scene. And that's a good scene, and it's where Laurie turns up late and she starts drinking her daughter's wine and stuff. And I thought that was like the one moment in the film where she wasn't the hardened. I mean, I think Jamie Lee Curtis is very, very good at doing the hardened Sarah Connor thing, and I love the bit where she says to the podcast interviewers, "I'm twice divorced and I'm a basket case." You know, it's a great line. She really sells that side of the character. But for a moment in that dinner scene where Laurie turns up late and is embarrassed, and she gets all awkward and quiet, you can see that she is that awkward girl from the first film. You know, in those moments where she's like, "Guys think I'm too smart," and she's not sure of herself. And that was really nice. And we've not seen that side of the character for 40 years. So I really appreciated things like that. But my overall impression was that, having seen it twice as well, the first time when you don't know what's coming up, it's okay and it gets really good towards the end. If you watch it again, the first hour of the film has good bits in it, like the ones I've mentioned, good elements, but it just doesn't really add up to anything. It doesn't really drive to anything. And it's just frustrating. But the last half hour is so good. I think it's very, very strong, with a few kind of dips out of it. But the thing I want to say about why I don't think it works as a sequel to the original is because I think my reading of the original is different to the filmmakers. What's really important to me in the original film is the supernatural element. I've said on the podcast before that I think that Halloween is a ghost story pretending to be a serial killer film. Michael Myers is a ghost. He's not a dead person, but he's somehow a ghost. He can appear and disappear at will, silently. He can get into cars that are locked, and then at the end you find out that he can't be killed. He's a supernatural presence, and my reading of the ending has always been the movie stops because after Laurie and Dr. Loomis, between them, have killed Michael 3 or 4 times, and he gets up, it's like, oh, he will never die. Where can the story go? Let's just stop the film. And one of the last lines of the film is, "You can't kill the boogeyman." Yes, it's said by a kid, but I think it's... I mean, there was a really funny meme on
that's like classic statement of theme.
Yeah.
At the end rather than at the beginning.
There's a great... There's a great GIF that I saw in one of the Halloween Facebook message boards. What is this? The 90s? One of the Facebook groups recently.
What she was?
One of the Halloween Facebook. I saw a great GIF in one of the Halloween Facebook groups recently, and it had that shot of Laurie at the end of the film where she says, "It was the boogeyman," and then it shows Donald Pleasance's response shot, and the quote is, "As a matter of fact, it was an escaped mental patient." What the fuck? Are you 12, boogeyman? And I think that's how some people do read it, but I've always thought, no, the point of the ending is the child's view that it is the boogeyman is the correct one. And Laurie starts crying at the end of the film when she realises that he will never die. And unfortunately, that just doesn't connect with the new film.
Dan, I totally agree with you. That's brilliant. That's a brilliant reading. No, but it's a brilliant reading of it, because I'm still just digesting the first film, and I'm there going, he is still kind of alive at the end. Just that whole bit off the top of the roof, which they reference kind of half lamely. There's a lot of stuff in the new film that's a bit arbitrary, a bit for the sake of it. Whereas the first film was, and I think you're right that there's something they never say is supernatural. But I think if you'd you're right. Your thoughts are, if I was to write a script based on directly jumping off of that, but also 40 years have elapsed.
Yeah.
Like, why is he why is he being imprisoned?
Yeah.
Because he's not imprisoned in the first film. They've kind of...
He's in a hospital. It's in a mental hospital that he escaped from. What I know.
What I mean is at the end of Halloween,
yeah.
78.
Yeah.
He's just disappeared, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. The film just
so wouldn't it be more interesting? Because it was that's what confused me, because I watched the latest one. I'm like, okay, so he's escaping a mental hospital. Isn't that what he does every film?
Yeah.
And then like when did he get captured? And I was like, I thought he didn't get captured.
Well, apparently...
This is my unique take on it. He didn't get captured, so for me, like you say, it's not a direct thing. He's basically escaped, and everyone's going, no, he should be dead. I mean, is he Rasputin?
Well, the implication, what I thought the filmmakers of this film were saying was, at the end of the first Halloween, he got up and then was arrested, found and caught.
Which is very...
lame.
Which hasn't got and like to end on that and then go, and then there's a little bit where he was put in cuffs and they found him in a ditch and they put him in a van and took him to a mental hospital.
That ending is really powerful.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think we said something like along the lines of,
as a standalone film that makes it doesn't need a sequel.
Halloween is a serial killer film, but it's shot like a ghost story. And even although I don't think of Michael Myers as being like a ghost or a kind of supernatural figure in that sense, he is a very mysterious, enigmatic, spectral presence that appears in this, so you don't quite know what he is.
I think it's good for the film because you've got the Van Helsing Loomis character, who is very much he's evil. Like he never quite says he's the devil. He's got the devil in him or anything, but it's got that element to it. And I think if you'd carried that on, you should have written the sequel down. Basically your reading of it would have been. If you basically had 40 years where she's been looking over her shoulder but he's never been captured.
Yeah.
That's creepy as
hell. That would have been better.
That's like, well, he's never been captured for 40 years. He's not. Because we've seen so many serial killers in... Like I was talking about Silence of the Lambs. We've seen so many serial killers in mental hospitals. So it was almost like they didn't even need to have that cliche at the beginning.
I mean, and
of course he escapes at the beginning.
They were
it's going to happen, but like, why did it need to happen? Because it doesn't happen in the... If they were burning all the in-between bits...
Yeah. I mean, my other problem with it as a disconnect is that Laurie's motivation in this movie is to kill him. She has that line where she says, I prayed that he will escape so I can kill him. To me, at the end of the first film, she knows she cannot kill him. Yeah. So therefore, she should want to make sure he stays locked up or something like that, you know.
But then I always think, well, if he's a supernatural presence, he won't stay locked up. He can get out.
Yeah. Somehow. Why did he spend 40 years?
Well, exactly. Yeah. There's all these sort of...
And, if he just reappeared like on the anniversary of Halloween, like a ghost or something, like a...
I almost think they probably went... I don't know. If he's a real person and then he escapes, then we've got our premise.
Yeah.
We've got our inciting incident.
No, they knew that, and they were going to reshoot the ending of the original. They even went as far as rebuilding the bedroom set. They were going to reshoot it. And
like 78 they were?
Yeah. They were going to use a double for Donald Pleasance, and they were going to show him capturing Michael Myers. And they didn't.
Oh, you mean in 2018? They were
Yeah. Right, it was going to be a flashback, and they abandoned it for scheduling reasons or something.
They couldn't find somebody who looked like Donald Pleasance.
Well, no, they had someone who looked like Donald Pleasance, and they also had a different actor called Corey Mahan. Colin Mahan, who did the Dr. Loomis voice on the tape that you hear, which, to be honest, is my favourite crap bit of the film, because it just after the second time I'd seen it just played in my head for the next day, and it just made me laugh constantly. The bit where he goes, Ash, and weirdly, it just sounds like Dr. Loomis has had a stroke, and I think they should have made a joke. They should have just said it.
Yeah.
Because in the other films he does refer to having a stroke at one point. Yeah. It would have explained why his voice sounded, but he goes, I should be with him to ensure that life is extinguished. It has to die. And then the tape screws up and he goes, it has to die. And he just keeps doing that. And I just thought, what the hell? Oh dear. But I did appreciate the fact that at least Dr. Loomis sounds American this time, because in Halloween H2O they also had an actor doing the voice of Dr. Loomis, and they made a really interesting creative mistake, which is that they got Donald Pleasance's real life best friend into the room and had him comment on the recording sessions with the actor, and he told them to use the tape when he sounded most like Donald Pleasence. But actually, obviously, Donald Pleasence was not American.
Yeah.
So at that point, he was doing the wrong accent, and that's the one they used.
To be fair, his accent was, as much as I like Donald Pleasence, it wasn't the strongest American accent.
No, it wasn't. But he had a twang.
Yeah, definitely.
And
had
the
American
H2O
twang.
voice does not have a twang.
He
And
sounded
the new
like
one has too much twang.
He sounded like the Baldy guy off MASH.
The Baldy guy.
Posh and
Charles Winchester.
Charles, yeah.
Oh
Charles,
yeah. No,
Which is a
Well,
type
that's a
of
New England
American accent.
Yeah.
That's a New England accent.
Yeah, I was
Which
going to
is
say,
sort of
but
like
not
when-
but upper class New England as well.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably what the Pleasance was going for.
So those are like my. Oh, and the other thing I want to say is that I think, Howard, you mentioned then, that they show too much of Michael in all the films, and I feel that's true of this one as well. I think he looks good in this film, the way he's shot, the use of the mask and things like that, but they still show him too much. In the original film, he's always at the side of the frame, or he's in the distance. In this movie, he's right in the middle of the shot, walking along all the time, the camera follows him, and that's a stylistic choice, that's fine. And I think that kind of derives from the fact that the film sort of wants to ignore the sequels and reference them too.
Yeah.
I was annoyed with that. But anyway, that's. I'm just mentioning that because there's a spoiler-free thought again.
Mm-hmm.
And I did find it bizarre that so much, I think, was rehashed from the sequels. Like the whole bit in the middle of the film where Michael stalks and kills several random people is basically Halloween 2. It's the start of Halloween 2. And there's a bit where Michael's run over, like I think it was from Halloween 4. There's the bit where he stalks the woman in the public toilet, which is from Halloween H2O.
Yeah.
There's loads, and the whole thing of he escapes because he's been transferred from hospital to hospital is from Halloween 4. I just thought
what slightly annoyed me about it was, yes, that they did ignore all the sequels between the first one and this one, as if to say, well, those sequels are irrelevant, they're inconsequential, they're not very good, and we forget them. This is the real film. This is the proper sequel, and it was just like all the others. It's better made. It was better made. Technically, it was better made.
Yeah.
But it did all the things that all the sequels did, and it made all the kind of mistakes that all the sequels made. It was just another sequel. It wasn't anything special. And the kind of people making this film, you get the impression they did think they were doing something special.
And the more I think about what you've said, Dan, the more I just think, if they just had departed from the escaping from America, because not just in the Halloween franchise, in so many in the slasher franchise, escaped mental patient for a sequel is just ridiculous. I bet they were there going, why now? When you're writing a screenplay, it's always why now. So why is he back after 40 years?
Yeah.
So
and the reason why.
So they're probably going, I can't think. He's been in prison. That'll do.
That's gonna, I mean, and my main frustration is I think that the ending of the film's terrific, and the one idea they had that to centre it on Laurie and make it about how she coped with her trauma was great, and I think that the way the whole ending kind of fed it from that theme, it worked really well. But I don't think that the earlier part of the film sets that up well at all. Just a couple of other spoiler-free thoughts. I did think the music was great. I've recently re-listened to the podcast we did about the 1981 Halloween 2, and I think it sounds like I'm really down on the music. I think I just said the music's bad, which I kind of did think in terms of the theme tune, but actually that score, which was by Alan Howarth using John Carpenter's themes, is actually rather a good score. The problem in Halloween 2, which this film corrects, is that the music's kind of not really that well used in Halloween 2. It's a bit too quiet. It's kind of just randomly put under dialogue scenes. The theme that you love, Howard, which I think is called Laurie's theme on the Halloween 2 soundtrack, is that's just put underneath people talking. Whereas in Halloween, it's all those long, spooky shots of empty streets. The new film doesn't have that piece of music in it, and doesn't seem to be wanting to go for that kind of spooky eeriness at all, which again disappointed me because it doesn't continue from the original. But the music that it does have is great, and the way that music is used is great. There's both the use of the original theme and the new stuff just works really well. My favourite bit is there's a scene, no spoilers, where a key character sees Michael for the first time, and she knows who he is, and she just sees him and recognises him, and the music kind of goes whoa like that, and it becomes this kind of drone that just keeps coming back, and it reminds me of the score from Carpenter's The Fog, and it's just relentless, and it just is wonderful. So I do think there were great things in the movie, but ultimately, I think possibly the greatest thing is the fact that it gave John Carpenter an opportunity to do a great score, and that Jamie Lee Curtis has a wonderful leading role, and this film has been very successful, and I hope that it leads to more movies like that, which bring back older female iconic characters, because we've gone through a long period where if you're a guy, it's okay to come back and do another sequel when you're far too old, as long as you're John McClane or Rambo or whoever. But there are characters like Ripley and Sarah Connor and people like that who deserve to come. And the Terminator franchise is doing this as well. Did you know that?
That's right.
The new Terminator film brings Sarah Connor back and ignores all the sequels in between 3, 4, and 5. So
finally watched Salvation the other day.
Oh right. Okay.
Oh wow!
I quite enjoyed Salvation.
Do you know what? I didn't mind it as a midpoint. I didn't see come in.
As opposed to apocalyptic action film, it's okay.
But then the bad CGI Arnie at the end.
Oh yeah, and I just thought I keep mentioning Psycho too. So I think the reason that I felt it was salient to compare this movie to Psycho 2 is because Psycho 2 came out more than 2 decades after the original. And the original is like a classic film. And a lot of people don't really rate Psycho 2. I do, but it doesn't compare to the original film really, but it's not trying to be. What it's trying to be is a movie about what Norman Bates is like 20 years later, and as such it's successful. It's a character study, and that's what this new film kind of wants to be. It wants to be that for Laurie, and I don't think it does that as well.
But also Psycho 2 is so audacious. I mean, God bless John Carpenter, but he's not Hitchcock.
Yeah.
So, you know, just to go, we're going to make a sequel to a John Carpenter movie. Of course. Is like, okay, fair enough. They were quite lowbrow anyway, but this is a Hitchcock movie.
Yeah.
I've not seen it myself, but I've heard it's very, very underrated as a film.
Yeah, it is.
As a sequel to Psycho.
Jamie Lee Curtis was nearly in it.
Really?
As well, they wanted to cast her as the daughter of the niece of Janet Leigh's character. But they Meg Tilly played that role instead in the end, and she's very good. Yes.
Vera Miles is in it though. They bring Vera Miles back.
Have I gone mad? Is Jamie Lee Curtis? Oh no, she's Tony. I'm getting Jennifer Jason Leigh and Jamie Curtis mixed up. Jennifer Jason Leigh is the daughter or granddaughter of Janet Leigh. Jamie Lee Curtis is Tony Curtis.
That's right.
Jamie Lee Curtis is the daughter of Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis. They were married.
So Tony Curtis.
Tony Curtis was married to Janet Leigh.
So forget Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yeah. Jennifer Jason Leigh is.
So that's what I thought. Yeah. I thought there was a Psycho connection, Last Girl connection.
Yeah.
Or midpoint.
Just before we move on to spoilers, then a question for you, Ian. In our previous podcast, which was about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, I talked about earning the title of Halloween. So this movie's called Halloween. The 1978 film is called Halloween.
That's not confusing. Or pretentious.
Which film do you think better earns or better suits that title?
Well, the first one.
Yes. Okay.
Answer. You are correct. Because it's nice and ambiguous and stands alone in a... I mean, it's no Jaws. That Jaws is an amazing, much better film than Halloween. But in a similar sort of way.
Oh, we can have an argument about
that. Well, no, but in a similar way, the Jaws sequels are things you have to be... same with Alien, you kind of have to ignore the sequels. Maybe with the difference that maybe Aliens is still a good film.
Certainly is.
But, no, I would say, but generally you have these movies and you have these horrible. It's a Hollywood tradition. You have these horrible franchises that come out of them, and it can keep you awake at night because retrospectively they ruin the good film. Like
the horror of the horror films.
just like Alien. I love Alien so much. When Aliens came along, it was like, oh my god, it's actually good. And it's really good, and those two films, so it's almost like they're the original film. So just James Cameron's a genius, and all the films that have come after have made me want to kill. Like, bit by bit. And when we get onto the prequels, it's just like, so I would love. I was fantasizing all the way driving over here, like actually, because James Cameron wrote it as a spec script. He wrote a sequel to Alien as a spec script with the whole Mars suite playing, didn't he?
Yeah.
He wrote Terminator and he wrote Aliens.
And Rambo at the same time.
And he wrote Rambo?
He wrote Rambo 2 at the same time as writing Aliens.
But he was just there, and I was having this fantasy of going, do you know what? On the back of Halloween and now what they're doing with Terminator, is it not time for something that picks up Ripley and Newt and Hicks?
Well, wasn't that going to be
30 years on?
Weirdly, that's what they were going to do 2 years ago.
Neil Blomkamp.
Well, I was going to say the Neil Blomkamp. So
and Ridley Scott apparently cancelled it, but I think maybe now it will be reconsidered.
I hope so, because that sounded like an amazing idea.
Yeah, but they've got to do it quickly because Sigourney Weaver is like 73. So
if they don't do it, I mean, what's the this is really off topic, but what's the woman who played Newt doing?
I'll tell you what. We'll talk about this at the end of the podcast.
Oh, I know.
I want to compare the Halloween franchise to other franchises, so we'll do that then.
Yeah.
Okay, so that I think. And just to follow on from your point about the titles. Yeah, I think the new film, they called it Halloween because they couldn't think of anything better, but it actually has the same problem that Zombies Halloween had. The movie doesn't really have anything to do with Halloween apart from the fact that it's set on Halloween. The title in the original stands for witchcraft and magic and atmosphere and strangeness, and none of that's in this movie. So why is it just called Halloween? Somebody suggested it should have just been called Michael Myers or The Shape, which I think you could have not set it on Halloween. That's how irrelevant the date of Halloween is to this movie. Okay, so those are our spoiler-free thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've seen the film by now. If you haven't, go away and watch it, or don't. Watch the last half hour, and come back and
don't
now.
Watch the last half hour.
Oh right, okay.
Like that.
Really? Okay. Well, let's get on there then. Okay, so I think we'll start with you then, Ian. So, what are your spoilerish thoughts on this movie?
Well, I think as I mentioned before, I just thought her going from surviving Halloween to having then spent 40 years preparing for the apocalypse based on one crazy person doesn't like I said before, it's almost like the mythos around Michael Myers came as a result of all these awful films in between, all the sequels, all the he's up there with he's a Jason Voorhees and a Freddy Krueger. It's almost like this. You're supposed to go into those films going, "Oh my God, they're the devil, they're the demon." But if you ignore all those films, then he was a serial killer who, at the age of whatever he was, 6, killed his sister, then escaped, went on a killing spree, and went missing.
Yeah.
And if nothing has happened in between, then why the hell has Jamie Curtis not got her life together a little bit more?
Yeah.
And why is she preparing for the apocalypse? And why, she's even more mad.
Yeah.
She's basically prepared for the apocalypse and she's brought her daughter up.
Yeah.
Taught her how to shoot guns and also just because she got attacked once.
And the film does know that.
By a knife!
Yeah.
In America!
It doesn't develop that at all. It doesn't.
I agree with the sense that when she says, I've had 2 failed marriages, and you kind of think, well, could this character have had?
Yeah.
I can't imagine her being married. I can't imagine this life that she's had between the first film and this one, if she's just this manic figure still after all this time. You would be traumatised, yes, if you were attacked by a serial killer and all your friends were murdered. But this is 40 years later. She's supposed to have had 2 marriages and brought up these children. I just couldn't quite see how she could have done that and still been...
I mean, if she'd been driven mad, and then we basically find out for 40 years she's she's not got divorced because she's never been able to get married, and she's basically been in a mental institution.
I see it as that she's seemingly dealt with it. Like for all intents and purposes, she's put it behind her. She's gone, I have to lead a normal life. I have to, have all the things that normal life encompasses: marriage, kids, all that. I'm going to focus on that as much as I can. But all the way throughout her life, she wasn't totally healed. She wasn't totally. All the work she's done, it's still eating away at her bit by bit, every day, every hour, every minute, till it breaks down her relationships with her daughter, with her husbands, and then she gets to that point that it's all that she is now. That's all that she is, and to cope with it is this all this preparation, all this training. That this is her coping mechanism. This is how she deals with that trauma that was never really fully dealt with or exercised from her, and that's all that she has now. That is her life, and I feel like that's why we find her at that point in the film.
I find the Laurie in Halloween H2O is much more believable. I can believe she was married and had children, and it seemed much more authentic.
So I've not seen it, but she's got on with her life.
Yes, she got on with her life,
and she's quite normal, and then he escapes.
He doesn't escape. She thinks he may be out there somewhere, and she's scared that he'll come for her, but she's kind of in hiding in that film. So it's a bit
similar film, isn't it?
Right.
Well, and this is something I should have said in spoilers, but never mind. In non-spoiler, I do like the fact that we have got essentially two versions of what happened to Laurie, and two very different performances from Jamie Lee Curtis about what happened to Laurie, because I think something about mythic characters is that they have contradictory stories told about them, like Robin Hood, and it's great. I could stand to have more different Laurie stories. I think she's a really interesting character, and she's a really interesting actress. Jamie Lee Curtis is, I think, and I don't blame Scout Taylor Compton for what happened to Laurie in the Rob Zombie films. It's not the actress's fault, it's all about the writing. I did like that, and actually this movie made me feel good about the fact, it made me like H2O more, and I already liked it a lot. But I think it's strengthened by the fact that there are things that this movie probably does better than H2O. But it's okay because you've got both movies.
Why don't you call it H2O? Because that's shit.
It's a stupid title.
Yeah, no one knows.
20 years later.
Yeah.
It's because someone at the studio was too thick. I think they thought it was called H20. And nobody realised that when you look at it and you read it aloud,
the screenwriters are supposed to be the most intelligent person in the room.
I don't think a screenwriter.
In my experience, absolutely not. No. She also got short hair in Halloween H2O, which I like.
Oh yeah.
Well, enough.
And that's a good look.
Less easy to grab.
She's a very attractive woman.
So yeah, I like your reading, Dan. I think you can read the movie. You can infer that. I think possibly as a function of the fact that this movie is 40 years later, it doesn't show us any of the intervening time. True, yeah. They don't really set that up, but you can infer it. And I think a lot of people have, and that's fine.
I think there's inferring, and it's there in the movie, and then there's fans filling in the gaps.
Yeah, oh yeah, sure.
Then, I mean...
Oh no, I don't
This is like Stephen Moffat era Doctor Who. It's like, no, you shouldn't have to do all that filling in those gaps. Yeah. That's bad writing, and I think from 1978 to 2018, there's not enough in there to make you go, this is what has convincingly happened to this woman.
No.
Like she's a mad woman in a cabin with a trap for Michael Myers, which is so stupid, which I just don't like.
That's interesting. I was disappointed that the movie is so much about her trauma. Like you say, it's minimised what Michael Myers did to the very simple thing that he killed her friends. And yet, and that's the event that has traumatised her and ruined her life. But the movie never talks about the friends. She never once remembers Linda or Annie. There's no flashbacks. There's no mention. Where's the cameo appearance from Charles Cyphers, Sheriff Brackett, whose daughter was killed in the first film? Yeah, he's retired somewhere. I think there's a line in Halloween 4 which is he's in Malibu or something. But, you know,
Martini?
Just get him on the phone. It doesn't do that at all. It doesn't think about those characters. And I think that's very, very strange.
So the cop who's in the 2018 one, because he was there that night,
He's not in the original film.
He's not in the original film, because I thought maybe he was and I didn't remember.
No, he was going to be, if they had done what they planned to do and reshot the ending of the first film, there was going to be a young actor playing a young version of that character.
Retroactive continuity going on.
I see, but it wasn't from 1978.
No, not at all.
I was there that night when they captured him. I see.
Yeah, again, he's there mostly as a plot explainer. It's like, they captured him, I know because I was there. And there's that line about...
And we also know because he's in hospital.
Yeah.
He's in the prison.
Yeah, but, you know...
I found all that... him being in prison was basically the first bad creative decision of probably and the knock-on from that was why the film didn't quite work for me, because that was dodgy and predictable.
Yeah.
And to try and go, like you said, they basically, in one movie, they made all the same mistakes as a bunch of schlocky cash-in sequels did. And they kind of did it themselves, but trying to pretend they were better than that.
Yeah.
And they made lots of the same errors.
I think this is a good point to talk about an actor called Haluk Bilginer, who plays Dr. Sartain. So I think you might mention him as something you didn't like in the movie.
The Loomis.
The new Loomis.
The new Loomis.
Can I just say that I didn't know who Haluk Bilginer is, but I looked him up. He's a Turkish-British actor, and he used to be in EastEnders.
Oh, right.
That's his main role. I think he's good, and you know what?
Nothing against any of the actors or the art department or anything. The film looks great, and everyone's doing their job. But the problem is
idiotic. I think
it's when it starts going. The whole thing just seems desperate, and then the fact that they've got it's a trap. I've built this big thing as a trap. It's just like.
But I think
it's everything the original wasn't. The original was quite believable with maybe a supernatural hint. That's a really good tone to get.
The original film.
And this one had lots of stupid sequel-y stuff in.
The original film had no twists. It just told the story. There was no sudden changes, reverses. It just told the story of
and
Michael
the twist was
killing
right.
these people.
The twist was at the end, wasn't it?
Even so, it's not.
Which was you can't kill the boogeyman, but then he didn't go. It's definitely a supernatural being. It just.
I suppose that's a twist in a way, but it's not kind of.
But
it's just a sort of an extra little supernatural thing at the end. This film has idiotic twist, like the Doctor suddenly killing the sheriff because he wants to take Michael Myers to see his family and see what happens. And I thought that is absurd.
It was just ridiculous.
Well, and it's a plot twist just for the sake of having a plot twist.
I liked it for two reasons. I didn't like it; it is rubbish. But I will give it two things. One, at least it surprised me late in the film when I was getting annoyed that the film was like stale and repetitive. Yeah. I just thought, that's something I've not seen before. Where's it going? 2 minutes later, it doesn't go anywhere. You realise it's just a plot device to get Michael to Laurie's house, which they should have thought of in a better way. The other thing I liked about it was just that because he was basically Loomis too, this makes him different.
Yeah.
That if you were going to have Michael's Doctor character in the movie, he has to fulfil a different plot function to Loomis.
Yes. If you have to have a Doctor in it.
No, you don't have to. You don't have
to. I'd argue that actually Laurie is the new Loomis.
Yes, she is. She is.
She's the one going, he's evil.
She's the Ahab going after Moby Dick. You know, she's that.
She's Sarah Connor going, it will not stop.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely will not stop. I think she fills that void within that. She's the older character, but she's also kind of marrying those two characters.
She's
together.
totally got the mantle. If I don't know, I just find the whole thing frustrating because. The original is good, and then I find.
I'll tell you when
basically it didn't quite get there for me as a movie. It'd be a 3-star movie.
I tell you when I
as a sequel
start to get
as a standalone film.
Disillusioned with it is it's in the scene and it's a brilliant. It starts well. I think it's well, and there's a really eerie, terrific scene where there's a boy and his dad driving a car, and the bus has gone off the road, and all the inmates of the institution are wandering around, and it's at night.
You know what I liked about that scene most of all was that the kid with the gun is really competent.
No.
You know, there's a bit where he comes up to he finds a cop unconscious and he nudges him with his gun, and he carefully turns his gun over and nudges him with the butt.
Yeah.
You know, he does. They do the bit a little bit later that he accidentally shoots Dr. Sartain. But I just love the fact that the character who discovers that everything's gone to hell is a really competent child.
Also, who's a ballet dancer.
Yeah,
he wants to be a ballet dancer, but then, and there's a really great scene, he's wandering around, then he gets in the car, and then Michael Myers kills a child. And unnecessarily. Michael Myers had just got in the car, drove off, and left the child. Like he did in the first film, he left Nancy Stevens, stole the car. Why are we killing a child? That's when I thought, I'm not going to like this. Right. That just seems entirely gratuitous. It's like, oh, aren't we tough? Killing children, we're going to kill children in this. Although they didn't kill a little black boy. He didn't
kill the baby either.
He was my favourite character.
Yeah, I think he was my favourite character.
He was, yeah.
If there's going to be a sequel, I want him to be.
Can I say, he was great, and also we don't know that he didn't die. Nobody at any point says he's definitely not been killed. He just runs off.
Yeah,
but
I think his line is something like, "Fuck this shit," and he literally runs out.
If you don't see someone die in a film where it's very graphic, I think it's safe to say they did.
I think he made it. I think he ran off.
He's not like the one cop that survived in Terminator.
There's a great scene. There's great scenes. There's great stuff in this. It's like he says, "Oh, there's something in my room," and she looks around. There's nothing there. And he says, "Oh, I can't close the closet door." You know, and Michael Myers is there. That's great. That was scary. I like that. But then all this.
I did like the closet stuff because he was hiding in closets and. Previously, she was.
That kind of thing.
That stuff was all
that
nice enough.
All that stuff's great. I mean, all right, let's. Okay, I just want to mention because we talked a lot about stupid things. This was what was was annoying me. Pointless stupidity by characters to facilitate plot, which you get a lot in slasher movies. There's the stupidity of the bit where, well, firstly, Laurie watches Michael's boss leave the hospital when he's being transferred, and it's a really powerful moment where you see her scream in the car, and it's brilliantly acted.
Those things are great,
But it's like, but why doesn't she follow the boss? If she's that obsessed, why does she just let them drive off and then later finds out that he's escaped? And then she goes to her daughter's house specifically to tell them that Michael Myers has escaped and does not tell them, so that there's another 15 minutes where they don't know that there's danger.
Yeah.
And then there's the scene in the midst of that where Laurie's granddaughter's at the Halloween party and she has an argument with her boyfriend who throws her phone in the custard so that nobody can ring her. And it's like... I just feel like
if it was water, I could understand. Like, the custard probably isn't going to seep through the phone.
If it's a phone, you don't go, "Oh, I'm definitely going to need that because there might be a serial killer." You go, "Well, I'm going to put that in some rice." Like, I don't know I'm about to be attacked by a serial killer. But you dick, I can't use this tonight.
Yeah.
But the consistency of custard, I wouldn't seep through into the phone. It wouldn't.
No.
It would you just wipe it clean. It'd be fine. If it was water, if it was punch, if it was a punch bowl, fair enough. That's probably fucked.
But custard, Angel Delight, Le Mans, Dream Topping,
all of that,
they're all fine.
sticky
I put my phone in all of those things.
And every movie has just every modern horror film has to deal with the mobile phone.
Yeah,
it has to do something. But to do it like that was just.
But I don't know. But the thing is, with the horror movies, I actually think there is an idea that's grown up that intelligent people subscribe to, that you have to have some stupid characters in horror films, otherwise nothing would ever happen.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
Don't run up the stairs, bitch!
I think that makes a comedy horror film, and that's what the slasher genre is, and which Halloween isn't.
Exactly.
Halloween might be like Freddy Krueger and all those things, which I've never liked.
Yeah.
They're all in that stupid beautiful people that we quite want to die. That's the whole thing. But Halloween is almost like you don't really want the beautiful people to die because they're not that. I'm not saying they're not that beautiful. They're normal people. So it's horrible.
People.
They're normal, likable people, and she's a nerd, which is why it makes it different.
But the other thing is, I mean, there's a recent example of this, which was Alien Covenant. In that movie, everybody's stupid and nobody knows what's going on until it's too late, and there's no tension as a result.
20 years ago.
Sorry?
Alien Covenant. Oh, Alien Covenant. Alien 4, yeah.
No.
Oh, Alien Covenant, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that actually, even the intelligent writers and directors of these movies actually think, no, we've got to put some stupid stuff in here. That's what horror is. And nobody seems to realise that it's actually even more frightening when characters know what's going on and have to deal with it. It's why the best scene in The Birds is the one bit in the middle where they get together in a cafe and talk about the fact that birds are killing everyone. The rest of the movie is people aren't aware of what's going on.
There's a pull-out quote in this SFX here from Bloom, the
Bloomhouse.
The clean, simple storytelling isn't boring. That's the scariest, and he's right. But that's not what this film does.
No.
Clean, simple storytelling is The Exorcist, where people act like real people in a supernatural situation, or Alien, where they act like real people. It might go back to why I don't find these movies scary, because I'm not that bothered about gore. I can watch gore all day, and it doesn't scare me. Unless it's really visceral, which brings us on to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre also is emotionally true in that it's horrible and creepy, and the kids aren't that stupid. They're just innocent lambs to the slaughter. And it's getting that sort of tradition of the slasher movie is fine. That's kind of a thing, but that's not scary. To me, that's a comedy film. Like all the Wes Craven stuff, I've never been that bothered about them. They're comedy movies with blood in them, which is what Bad Taste is. Which is what the Monty Python movies are.
You could argue with Halloween, it created a lot of the staples of the slasher genre.
But it's apart from them.
Well, no. I mean, you can argue that one, she runs up the stairs. That was in that film, and that's cemented as a slasher thing. She also drops the knife. So for an academic, she does still make mistakes in her panic state, which anybody would do.
But they feel like normal. In Halloween, everyone feels like normal people.
Right.
They don't feel like people that are
caricatures.
In 2018, so many moments I was going, oh god. So, like the scene with the crash bus, they look like people from a mental hospital wandering around, and the dad just says, "I'll just get out." That makes the tone of the film totally different from Halloween. That makes it like one of the crappy Halloween sequels, I imagine, where people do.
Not all Halloween sequels are crappy, by the way.
They're all great. They're all amazing.
Are they? But you know what? I've not seen them, but like your standard 80s slasher, where people do go off and do stupid things, and that's the fun of them. I guess. But that to me was like, okay, he's just gone out. Why has he gone out? And then the kid gets out.
Yeah.
And then the kid shoots the doctor, and then again another plot. This is different, but another plot thing that happens that has no consequence later in the script.
Yeah.
He gets shot. Why does he get shot? Does that do anything later on?
No.
It's just to have a bit of a.
It's a fake out scare. That's what it is.
And it makes the weird scene where he does the killing and holds Michael Myers' body into the car and does a lot of stuff just really awkward because he's only got one functioning arm. You just think she can't get out past this unconscious big man and one-armed
and the guy with one arm.
We've only got less than 20 minutes left, so let's. I just want to skip on to. Let's talk about the ending of the film. I've said that I think the last half hour is great. I think. It does contain the Dr. Sartain twist, but and you've got to skip over that. It also contains the Halloween 5 cops talking about sandwiches.
However, I think the comedy in this one actually works as opposed to the one in that one.
Some of it is kind of funny, and there are funny moments in this film. Undoubtedly, we talked about the kid and stuff like that. Yeah. But I think the ending is really good. I'll just say that again. I think the ending's really good, but I feel like that was their whole idea and their whole pitch for the movie. We're going to have this ending. Laurie Strode's a badass. She's created a house which seems to be a defensive thing, but it's actually a trap for Michael Myers, and her whole plot is to lure him into it and trap him. And they do a load of sequences that build up to that. Laurie stalking through the rooms and locking off each room in the house, and things like that. Really great. And then the moment at the end, the turnaround moment where Michael is shot and they trap him in the cellar and the bars come down and all that, I think is fantastic. And I love the moment where they're activating the gas and that's going to burn the house. And I love the way that when the bars have come across, Michael just kind of stands there looking at them, and there's almost like, I think you described it as like an almost childlike quality.
Yes, yeah.
It's like he doesn't know why they're doing it. And I like the fact that it's like there are 3 generations of women whose lives have basically been ruined by what he did, and they are executing vengeance, and he doesn't know why that is, and he just stands there. And I thought that was a really satisfying ending to a different movie.
Yeah.
I think basically they wrote that.
It's almost dog-like, isn't it? The dog's just waiting outside
Yeah.
to be let in, kind of like that.
And they pitched. I feel like the screenwriters pitched that as what the movie would be. But then they realised they had to write a film leading up to that ending, and they didn't know what to do.
I also found the whole trap thing just beyond the realms of what would happen in. It feels more what would happen in a movie with a different tone to the Halloween original Halloween movie.
Yeah,
like she built an elaborate trap.
Yeah, I mean,
but it just doesn't seem real to me. It seemed
I know what you mean.
It just, I don't know.
Probably something out of a Saw film, kind of.
That kind of thing.
But
yeah,
no,
yeah.
I mean,
Which is a different thing from if their task was to make a sequel to 1978 Halloween.
Oh no,
not have all the gibberish that gets added on to the franchise.
But if they'd have done that ending and led up to it properly, it would be a great movie. It would be a good sequel to Halloween, but it would be a great movie, I think, and I think that's what they thought they were making.
If it had been I just think the whole problem is that she's dedicated her life to being scared of someone who basically killed 5 people.
Yes.
Then deal with it. I mean, like it's okay. She'd be traumatized. She'd grow up. She'd be like, it's more like the realistic version of it would be, I put that behind me, and to spite him, I went and studied hard. Yeah. And then you maybe just have her still having dreams, and if they'd latched onto the you can't kill the boogeyman, she's always at the back of her mind.
Yeah.
I think the problem,
but then they have to find the reason of why does he come back now.
I think the problem is the problem they've had, as I've said with all the sequels. I've said this so many times, I kind of bored with myself for saying it, but I'm sure people listening might be bored with me saying it as well. But I keep saying it because I think it's right. The first film is not about the killing, it's about what happens between the killings. And this film seemed to be about the killing. Yeah. So by the time we get to the ending, no matter how good it is, we've had all that other stuff. As we said, Michael Myers in the first film is this, because it's Halloween, this playful, he's playing tricks on these kids, isn't he? He's sort of appearing and disappearing, putting sheets over his head, that sort of stuff. Now, as this film is supposed to be a sequel, a direct sequel to that, I thought Michael Myers was going to be like that. He was going to be the playful, enigmatic, weird character he was.
There was a hint of that in the trailer because of that moment where, this moment, which we can see a picture of in front of us, where he's pulled the guy's teeth out. And he seems to have done that specifically so he can drop teeth down in front of the woman on the toilet and frighten her.
Yeah.
You know.
But then he kills her.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of... In the first film, I mean, I don't think you can really analyse the why for of most of what he does,
and
that's kind of the appeal of it. But he tends to, when he does kill, I feel like he's only doing it to set up something to frighten someone else.
Yeah, well, that's what he's frightening. That's what Kim Newman says, frightening people.
There's only 2 bits in the movie where he does that. There's that bit, and there's also the bit where he's turned the cop's head into a jack-o'-lantern, which I thought was quite a
nice
nice
puts that
visual.
Ghost sheet over one of the victims as well.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is that Michael Myers now, even though this is supposed to be a sequel to the first one, Michael Myers has become this cult character.
Yeah.
And the makers of this film can't pretend that he's not that.
Yeah.
We've had all these films. Everybody knows he wears this mask and he's this big, tall, robotic figure. So they have to have him doing that.
Yeah.
They have to have him being as the audience expects him to be and as they believe him. And the ones who've seen all the sequel. That's what Michael Myers does.
It's also...
The public perception of Michael Myers is not necessarily what he actually was in the first film.
Like, if Michael Myers had killed 5 people in 1978, all the serial killers in the world, he wouldn't have a podcast about it.
No.
He wouldn't be that. He'd just be. He'd be like a curio.
Yeah.
He's not Ed Gein. He's not any of the real. You know.
Yeah.
They wouldn't make a podcast about a man who killed 5 people in one day. It's not even a spree.
Maybe the podcast.
It's not even a reign of terror.
Yeah, but he did it dressed as William Shatner, which is.
That's the most terrifying thing.
Yeah, that is terrifying.
Okay, so
in a way, they would have had the thing where it would be a local legend, which they could have used instead of making it big and global. It's a local legend that then would have kept it local. And people would have gone, oh, do you remember what happened there 40 years ago? It would be a creepy, where I live, someone got killed and they never got caught. and
campfire tale,
and no one outside of the few villagers around it probably knows about it, and the cops in Delamere, but somebody got killed 20 years ago and nobody knows who did it. It's a real thing. And if a murder happens again, it will be really creepy and it will be really local.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
It's mostly to Howard and Dan. In regards to all the films we've watched, where does this sit in the
pantheon?
The pantheon of all the films we've watched.
Which is your Phantom Menace?
What is your top 3, top 5, and does it fall in it?
I thought about this when I was walking out the cinema, trying to find my way back to the station. I thought, where does it sit? And I thought I didn't like this as much as Halloween H2O, because I just think that's a better made film, and I like the way Laurie's portrayed in that, and I didn't like it as much as Halloween 2, which I thought was very stylistic.
The Rob Zombie or the...
Well, of course the Rob Zombie! I love Halloween 2.
Rick Rosenthal.
And actually, in a way, I thought some of the other one, like Halloween 4, in a way was more interesting, because at least it was trying to do with the Daniel Harris character.
Something different.
Was trying to do something different. This just seemed like a very generic slasher film. This is a Michael Myers film, because this is what the public expects Michael Myers to be like. There's one scene where a woman's in a house, we don't know who she is, she's just in this house, and he goes round the back and kills her, and that's...
Yeah, why does he do that?
Why does he do that?
Well, no.
Because they need another killing.
I like the fact, and I think some people like the fact that they're setting up the fact that he just kills at random. They're kind of getting away from that family connection thing. He kills his family members.
Yeah, but it's too many people.
Oh yeah, but I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying that's a good scene, but I do think it's quite well shot. I don't think it's emotionally or stylistically effective in what I want, in terms of what I want to get out of the movie. We're running out of time, so I think we just. By the way,
to answer your question, Dan, I put it about fifth.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, it's one of the better ones. And I like it as an alternative version to H2O. I think H2O is a more satisfying movie, but possibly this one has a better ending.
Okay.
In terms of the ending, I want another question to us, which I guess is more... Well, now, what do people think of the ending in terms of, do we feel like it's setting up another sequel?
I hope not. I really hope not.
I think it's inevitable.
No, if this film makes a lot of money, yes, it's setting up another sequel.
It's done its money. I will put money on the fact that we'll always see a sequel. But
there will be a sequel. There is no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But do you think the ending of this film sets up a sequel? It's like there is.
We don't see him die. We just see him burn.
Yeah.
And
seemingly burn.
We just see him standing in the flames, looking very impassive. And I'm trying to remember, do they have to run out before it all blows up?
I think so.
Yeah.
So
they jump on the back of a truck.
He's in his escape pod.
I mean,
I know. I do. But that's funny.
I do remember thinking one of the reasons I possibly like the ending so much is I felt like it did a few things which they can't take back. Like Michael Myers gets some fingers shot off, and I think they also chop one of his hands off when they're kind of stopping him climbing out. She strikes at his arm with a big cleaver. And it looked to me, both times I saw it, like it looked like she chopped at his hand. I think they cut it in such a way that you could probably play it either way. She either just cut him, but I felt like it was sort of going in that direction. And you could leave it off, but of course they are going to do another sequel. The other idea I've got is that I think the thing that we're all most excited about this film is that it dumps the idea that Laurie is Michael's sister. That's something that comes in all the sequels. And I feel that they did that, but they didn't realise that means there's no reason for Laurie to be in the film, because there's no reason why he would come after her. And why does she think he's going to come after her? Someone who, I think another reviewer pointed out, he met her for a few minutes in 1978. And the other thing is, what it does do from a filmmaking point of view or from a production point of view is that they can make sequels now which don't need to have the Strode family, don't need to have Jamie Lee Curtis in. They are free of that. I don't think they're talking about that at the moment, but I feel that inevitably Jamie Lee Curtis is going to step away and it'll just become about Michael Myers killing.
When I was watching it in the cinema, I just thought, I hope he's dead.
Yes.
I hope finally he's dead. Because I
think everybody hopes that in the film.
Yeah, well, in the film.
Yeah.
I just think there's nothing really more to be gained.
He won't be.
No, he won't be. But
So I've got 2 final questions, and we're going to have to answer them very quickly because we've got 5 minutes.
Multiple choice.
So, well, I think actually you've all answered. You've answered my first question, which is: do we think the film should or could have been better?
Yes.
And if so, how? Yes.
The short answer is yes.
We've kind of outlined it. I just want to quickly say: do you want to pitch in, Dan? Because you haven't really said.
I enjoyed it for the most part. The only thing that I really didn't like was the really cliche of I heard a noise. Go outside and look, you big strong man. And I was like, honestly, you've written that into your horror script. That is the worst possible cliche.
The worst one that I thought was the biggest. This is a bad sign. A horror movie. The biggest jump scare in the cinema I saw it. Everybody jumped out of the seats when Dave appeared and went whoa, and it was that was literally the biggest jump.
Wow.
Well, what I would say is yes, it should have been better because they had 40 years to prepare for it. They had 9 other movies to learn from the mistakes of. And the 2 biggest plot holes in the movie that other critics have come up with are: 1, where has Laurie got all this money to build a massive fortress? And 2,
ripping off podcasts.
Why is she afraid that Michael will come for her when she's not? When they're not related at all?
Unfinished business.
But you could have solved that in 2 things. Why isn't she living in the Michael Myers house? Her family owned it and nobody else would buy it. If she was a screw-up who had no money and no way of making money, she'd end up living in it, and then she'd be terrified that he was going to come home, because that's what he did in 1978. He came home. That is my pitch.
Yeah.
I just think...
Too late.
Yeah, well, there we are.
I was pitching.
Okay, so final question. What do you each think the next movie in the series should be?
Have one in space yet? I think they did that with Jason, didn't they?
They did.
Jason ended up on it. Jason ended up on a space station, didn't he? So even you say as a joke, when they've already been there, haven't they?
Yeah, no, they did it, and it was a comedy.
Well, I personally don't think I really don't want one.
No, I don't want one.
I quite liked the idea.
They screwed this one up. If they'd made this good, then fine. It would have. We could have bounced off and had a sequel to it. But for me, this was a bit of a halfway house. So why have a sequel to a crap halfway house?
Yeah, they are going to do one.
They will do one, and it will be probably schlockier and a bit like they're going to go into the sequel territories properly, and there'll probably be a druid thing going on. How has he survived flame?
All about the druid.
He's the living embodiment of a demon.
Oh, I wish he was. Dan, what about you?
I really liked that idea. I think you were talking about it in the Halloween 2 podcast. Was John Carpenter's initial idea of
the anthology?
No, not even that. It was that somehow that Michael was dead, supposedly dead, and that the legend and the mythos of Michael Myers and the Shape kind of resurrected him. It was more like a psychological, kind of more like a ghost story, like you were saying. I think that might be interesting, like the legend and the urban legend, and the fear that resolves in could resurrect him in a spiritual, spectral form, like the original film was.
Nice one. We will send that to Malik Gard. All right. Mine is one thing I've realised in watching all these movies is that John Carpenter had a great idea at one point, which was to turn the Halloween films into an anthology series. My favourite direction now would be to do that again. A Halloween film every year on a different story, but the same Halloween theme. That's probably not going to happen, but what I have realised in watching these 10 films is it kind of has happened in a weird way. It is like an anthology series because none of it makes sense. They're all different random tales about Michael Myers, and actually you could kind of carry on doing that. And I think it was Chris Hewitt from Empire had a similar idea that put me onto this. And I feel in a way I'd love it if like the next movie in the series was a sequel that ignored all the sequels since Halloween 4, and it's a sequel to Halloween 4 where Jamie Lloyd has grown up and is in an asylum, and they bring Ellie Cornell back. She never died. God damn it. Died. And then they could sort of segue into the Halloween films being about other things. They'll say, oh, this sort of is a Michael Myers film. She's Michael Myers' niece.
They could just have another sequel to the original Halloween.
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, they could. Yeah,
I wouldn't mind seeing another film with Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, but I just don't want to see Michael Myers again. Maybe she goes off fighting vampires or something like that.
What if
She
what
joins
if
the X-Files.
what if the origin for Michael Myers was linked into Halloween 3 and he was working for that?
Silver Shamrock.
The Silver Shamrock guys.
He's an evil Irishman.
Instead of all that druid stuff.
Could happen.
I guess that is kind of druid witch stuff, isn't it?
Guys, we've come to the end of our time. It has been an absolute pleasure to go through this
As
whole
always.
series.
been a
Thank you
joy.
very much, Ian, for your great contribution.
Pleasure.
And thank you so much, Howard and Dan, for being with me through this incredible journey we've got to the end of.
Got to the end of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is And Now the Podcast Starts, and Now the Podcast Stops.
Can't kill the podcast.
Goodbye.
So there we go. That was myself, Ian, Howard and Spider Dan 3 years ago talking about Halloween 2018. Before we go on to our recommendations for the end of this episode, for which I, of course, am joined once again by Stella and Kirsty. Stella, I'd just like you to chime in. What are your thoughts about that movie?
Well,
you like the film, I think?
I did like it, yeah. I think... I need to be sort of, in the interest of being transparent as well, the last Halloween that I'd seen or had sort of engaged with at all before watching the 2018 one was Halloween H2O. And that was...
Interesting.
You know, it was a solid 2 out of 5, I'd say. So
I like that one. But okay.
I remember when I saw the trailer for Halloween 2018... I was lying on the sofa watching the trailer on my phone as I watched it, and it was like, yep, good Halloweeny stuff. It's all right. And then when the music came in, I leapt up off the sofa going, yay, it's going to be really exciting. And I was really, really, really pleased to see the film, you know, see Halloween coming back. And the trailer really excited me, and I dashed off to the cinema as soon as I could. I did actually see it at the cinema. And I thought there was some slow bits, but I really, really enjoyed the final sequence in the kitchen with the movable kitchen island thing and everything going on downstairs, and then the big fire at the end. And I just thought it ended. The film was okay. I had all the Halloween trappings that I wanted. I really enjoyed the last sequence, and then the way that it ended, I was just like, yeah, well done. Really, really enjoyed myself while I watched it, and I just think the trailer for Halloween Kills has made me feel similarly jazzed to go and see it. It just looks like it's just like they've just really amped it up, really turned it up, and I honestly can't wait to go and see it, but I don't think I'm going to be able to see it in the cinema. But yeah, my overall opinion on Halloween 2018, I really enjoyed it, and I thought the end sequence was particularly strong for Halloween.
Yeah. As the listener, having just heard the review, will know that I pretty much chime with that. I think the movie is kind of very messy for the first hour, but the last half hour is very strong.
Yeah.
And some great stuff in there, and potential for the follow-up to be really strong as well. Yeah. Who knows whether it will be? Hopefully we'll all find out soon. Okay, cool. So so I really hope we'll be able to revisit the Halloween franchise sometime soon and cover that movie, because it'd be a shame to have done like 11 Halloween reviews and not do the latest.
Why don't we set ourselves a challenge and we'll try and review Halloween Kills in less than 3 years' time? How about that?
I don't know if I can do that, Stella. That seems a little bit ambitious to me, but.
He needs 2 years to get his head, together, and his thoughts in order.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I'm not superhuman.
No, but you have to mull it over, don't you? Like, it takes time. You gotta sit with it.
You gotta ruminate.
It takes time and medication. In my case, and as you know, I have brain cells that are dying. Things that go slower. Great. Okay. So that's sort of a commitment.
Yeah.
I'm making a note right now. So, okay.
No,
so
you're not. I can see that you're not making a note. I can see you.
It's a mental note. It's a mental note.
No, use a pen.
I'm growing a dendrite specifically to do this. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the episode. So now is the time when we traditionally recommend things. Stella and Kirsty, do you have recommendations? Who'd like to go first?
Well, that would be me then. So I haven't been, obviously I've been slightly sort of out of my usual kind of habit of watching, listening, thinking about things because of craziness. However, I've been waiting since before the pandemic to see David Lowery's The Green Knight. And I was finally able to watch it because it came to Amazon Prime after they, kind of released it everywhere else, and for whatever reason it didn't get a theatrical distribution in the UK. It, then hit Amazon a couple of weeks ago, and it was lovely, and I loved it, and it's kind of all that. Kind of beautiful medievalist kind of fantasy plus kind of folk horror elements. It was kind of creepy and dark and yes. So yes to that film.
It's on Prime.
It's on Prime. But there's a large yes to that film.
Yes.
Generally. It's
great.
That's
cool.
it. I'm just going to, squee about it because it was very, very good. I liked it.
Well, I heard Mark Kermode's review of it, and he absolutely loved it.
He was probably much more concise than me.
I don't know, actually, but he did say, I know it's on Amazon Prime, but don't see it on Amazon Prime. Go to the cinema.
Yeah, I would have done. I would have totally have gone to the cinema had I been able to, but I was, able to watch it on a reasonably large television with decent sound, thanks to my husband's desire to, kind of have slightly better audio than I would normally choose. So it kind of, it would, sort of a reasonably big screen, and it works in that format, I think. So.
Cool. Right, okay, fantastic. I'd just like to quote you my favourite short review of that movie. It's from my best friend Baz on Twitter. He wrote, "The Green Knight, is it a good film? I'm not sure I know, and I've seen it." So obviously less enthusiastic than you, but
yes.
But sounds like he might watch it again. So on the other hand, that's kind of a good.
Sounds like he needs to.
Yes. So Stella, what's your recommendation this week?
Well, I'm sticking with slashers. So I watched There's Someone Inside Your House on Netflix. It's just a solid slasher movie, really. There's nothing dramatically wild about it, I don't think. Usual stuff, young people being stalked and slashed, but it's a good solid slasher if you want. And it's quite short, it's just under an hour and a half, I think, so you can watch it quite quickly. And it did everything that you want a slasher film to do. So check it out if you're not going to the cinema but you want more slasher action. There's Someone Inside Your House.
All right, fantastic. Okay,
I'm not sure. I have to say, I'm not sure I'd want to watch a film called "There's Someone Inside Your House" whilst watching it inside my house.
I don't think the title.
On your own.
I don't think the title works.
No,
because I don't recall at any point that it being like a call that's coming inside your house type situation. I don't recall that being a thing. So I think the title's a bit of a misnomer. It's just general running about slasher stuff. Yeah. But I enjoyed it. It was a good watch.
Fun.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the three of us concluding this week's episode. Woo. And well, we are three, and obviously on this episode too, we've had Howard and Ian not present in live, but present in recorded form. Maybe they'll be able to join us. Oh, that's something I meant to mention earlier. For anybody who'd like to support us on Patreon, we keep adding our new recordings to Patreon, so there's a bunch of stuff there which has not been released on the main podcast feed yet, and I've just put a new Bag of Death recording on there with Howard, which is special because it's the first ever Bag of Death that Howard and I recorded over Zoom, and it's a video, so you can see our slightly confused faces. You even get to see what the Bag of Death looks like, and what colour it is. My God. Tell me I'm not telling this to you right now. So,
you are, no, absolutely. Yeah. Although maybe it loses some of its mystique if we know that it's a Tesco's carry bag, I should say.
Oh. Well, you had to go and ruin it, Kirsty. You had to go. No, it's of course it's not a Tesco's carrier bag, and you won't know what it is unless you're willing to pay a little bit of money to subscribe to our Patreon, and we'll very much appreciate that. It's going to be worth every penny to know what colour the bag of death is. I can promise you. I can't promise you it'll be worth it, but do it anyway. Other things on the feed will make it worth it. So there we go. Right, that brings us to the end of the episode for this week, I think. Kirsty, thank you so much. It's been so great to have you back on the podcast. Stella, thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan.
It's been wonderful to be together as a team, and the team is growing and reuniting week by week, and it's a great feeling. So, we'll be back in some form next week, or at least in the nearish future, because I'm a little bit loath to absolutely commit to a day of the week at the moment. But
we don't commit on this podcast.
No, we don't. That's exactly what we don't do.
That's what we don't do.
We've already proved that our relationship to time is, malleable.
Yes. Perfectly put, Kirsty. All right. Well, that's us, though, for this week. Thank you so much. And listener, thank you for listening to us, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back again soon. Let's all say bye-bye. Bye-bye!
Bye-bye!
You have been listening to And Now the Podcast Starts. Produced and released by Ambidextrous Solutions Limited. Presented by Howard Whittock, Kirsty Warrow, Ian Winterton, Stella Gaynor, and T.D. Velasquez, with special guest, Spider Dan. Special thanks to Greg Hume for our original theme music, and to Brian Gorman for our original artwork. All dialogue and music clips from films, TV shows, and trailers are used for the purposes of criticism in the spirit of fair dealing as defined in UK law, and fair use as defined in US law. No copyright infringement is intended. Please visit our home on the web, www.andnowpodcast.com, for more content and contact details. Or visit our Facebook pages at AndNowPod or at Lee Cushing Pod. Follow us on Twitter at AndNowPodcast or at Lee Cushing Podcast. If you'd like to donate to us, please visit patreon.com/AndNowPodcast. And now the podcast stops.